Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm Joy.
I'm Reggie. Another friend of ours, Tyler, is going to be coming soon. So we wanted to put this event on because there's been a lot of struggle over the Delaware Avenue and the Schaefer Road, Natural Bridges, Mission Street extension for a while. And just recently, the Coastal Commission allowed a one-year pilot program of the oversized vehicle ordinance. We've been opposing the oversized vehicle ordinance for a long time because we believe that there are ways that are not quite as punitive to address a lot of the issues that are happening on these streets. But we felt that it was really important, as we are not yet in enforcement time, but a little bit just ahead of it. The city's planning outreach, the city's planning how this program will look over time, to get some feedback and conversation and things going, because we think that there's a potential that we can figure some things out and sort of learn which parts of the oversized vehicle ordinance are really existentially challenging to some folks, and which folks can maybe figure out a way to work with other parts of it. So that's what kind of this is all about. So everybody has a copy of the oversized vehicle ordinance. There are some notes that we put on there to help you understand maybe a little bit of why we had so much trouble accepting the oversized vehicle ordinance at first. Some of the notes you'll see is that the definition of resident, for various reasons, excludes people who are unhoused. So people who are residents get to have overnight parking permits for up to 12 days a month. It's also not great. But people who are unhoused get an out-of-town visitor permit, which is 3 days maximum. The other thing that you'll notice in the document is that detached trailers are criminalized by the OVO 24/7. All day, all night. You can't park it on a city street. And this is a problem for one of the people who is here, who lives in a detached trailer and is a member of Downtown Streets team right now. There's also problems in the OVO relating to daytime parking. Now, the Coastal Commission has removed these. These were very complex rules about parking too close to an intersection, too close to a stop sign, too close to various other sort of landmarks on a public street. Thankfully, those are axed out because that was going to remove over 50% of parking locations for people in oversized vehicles. And then the other thing about the OVO that is interesting that you'll notice reading through it is there's actually no safe parking guarantees in the OVO, despite what you may have read about the OVO. So oftentimes it's even described as a safe parking bill. Look through the OVO, you will not see any guarantee of any amount of safe parking in the OVO. What you will see is that the city manager may operate safe parking, may fund safe parking. And they're making that choice through the Homeless Response Action Plan, which we're thankful for. But at any time, they could run out of funding, they could shut down those programs. OVO and the restrictions will still exist. And we have a really big problem with that particular issue. The other thing that I think is interesting, that I'll show you in a bit, is the way safe parking is designed. So the safe parking that a lot of folks need out here is called Tier 3, which only has 15 spaces. They're all filled up, 50-person plus wait lists. These are 24-hour safe parking spaces where people have access to sanitation services and even caseworkers and things like that. The other parking sites that are available now are nighttime only. So you have to enter at night, leave in the morning. And part of the reason that that's difficult for the people that OVO is trying to mitigate impacts for is because those folks do not have a lot of money for gas to go back and forth all the time. These folks have things like leaky blackwater tanks, which prevent them from getting into a safe parking space. And they also often have maintenance issues, vehicle registration issues. all of those are going to prevent them from getting in a tier 1 or tier 2 safe parking site. So I just want to lay that groundwork so that we're all kind of on the same page about what OVO is, what it's not, and what some of the potential problems are. Now that you know, everybody knows what the oversized vehicle ordinance is. And I should tell you at a high level, because I didn't tell you at a very high level, is that if your vehicle is over 20 feet in length or taller than, I want to say 8 feet and wider than 7 feet, then it is an oversized vehicle and it is affected by this ordinance, which does not allow you to park overnight on city streets without a permit.
Yeah,
Stuff like that.
commute. So
Yes.
I live here, as most of the people do. I'm not sure if you're aware of it. Most of us live here at the end.
Sure.
Most of the people here are very supportive of the OVO in that we're not happy with the vehicles parking here on Delaware and on Schaefer for the senior community here. And I guess my question is, before you took up your crusade for parking here on Delaware, which affects us, see, I don't know where you live, why didn't you come in and at least try and talk with people here and find out what their feelings are? You're talking about a senior community. We don't have 25-year-olds. You know, most of the average age there is probably in the 70s, 80s, or 90s. And you never bothered to come and talk with us and say, hey, how do you feel about all these vehicles and the impact of them on your community? Do they have an impact? What is it? How do you feel about it? You weren't interested. You just had tunnel vision as to what you felt was a certain injustice. Thank you.
Is there any other questions to sort of clarify the OVO about what we're talking about here?
Yeah, I got a question.
Yeah.
So you park all these parks here, and I don't know how you're going to control all the trash and the waste and everything that comes down here.
Pick up all the garbage.
Anyway, so how are you going to police that and make sure people
pick up the sewage.
Yes, I do. Police all that. Right. How do you do that?
So that's a good question. I don't know that clarifies OVO. We can go into that kind of discussion if that's what other folks want to talk about. I think
The ODO prevents that. Right. I stayed here for a long time.
right.
And if you walk down here at all, you see piles of trash around some of these. You've seen that.
Well, I can tell you that I just drove down the street, and there have to be at least 40 vehicles along the way here and there, and I didn't see any trash.
I can show you pictures, believe me.
Broader conversation after we talk more about the mechanics of the oversized vehicle ordinance, because I don't actually know that that's the most productive conversation to have right now.
Right. Okay. So let's ask a broad question, which is, how does the oversized vehicle ordinance make you feel? Now that it's like something that's happening, what do you feel when knowing that is happening?
My name's
Go
John
for it.
McGregor. I work for the downtown street team. I've been working for them for over 5 years. I do it because I love it. I come out here, I pull out all the tissue and all the garbage and shit I've been finding. I pick it up. I don't care how people think, but I care about you guys. My mother and father died here from the '89 earthquake. I stayed here. This is where I live. This is where I'm staying. 35 years I've been out in the streets, and I'm not going to leave.
He does a lot of work.
A lot more work than you guys think.
He's volunteering for the parks. All he wants is a safe place to spray and leave his stuff. And yeah, okay. Well, he's not.
It's a lot, but you understand, there's only one man who's doing all this work for you guys.
So why don't the rest of them chip in?
Because they're too scared.
Why don't the rest of them chip in, form a committee, and clean it all up?
And it's really hard. But hey, do you guys do that?
Why don't you form the
Do you guys do that? You guys
And you
put stuff
form the
in the
committee?
trash and they take it away. But I mean,
No, I pick up all the garbage. You know where I take it? I take it to the state park. You know what they do? They give me the paperwork and says, sign this, and you get your name in the original people of Earth.
Hey, I applaud you. At least you're trying to.
I've been on for 35 years. All the 35 years, I've been on drugs. Since I got my new home, my A-frame trailer, it's better than any of these trailers out here. Beautiful, clean.
But keep in mind, this trailer is 100% criminalized by OVO currently.
And if you lose that, what else do you lose?
So you live someplace else.
No, I can't. I have to live here. This is where I belong. I was born here. I was born here in California.
What? So
No, I can't.
Okay. Thank you so much for signing out. Thank you, Lawrence.
As when a gentleman over here said, why can't you form a commission? Why can't they help pick up? And his response was, why don't you do it? It's not a helpful response. It's confrontational. And it's the unequivocal responsibility upon the people who live here, who pay taxes here, who have bought into this place.
I think it's important for it to be the responsibility of the entire community to work together. And, you know, there is a tension between property owners and taxpayers and people who are landlords or tenants. You know, there's demographics in the community, and things have been so dehumanized and polarized and argumentative that it becomes really challenging just to have a conversation where we connect and don't make assumptions about each other, about where we're coming from or what our motivations are, and where we're just asking, you know, checking with people. I've heard you say that. Did you mean that? And we all fail at that sometime or another. But, you know, to be able to talk about these things in a way that doesn't dehumanize people, or as Lawrence was saying, that actually make people afraid to come forward and to have conversations with each other or to participate in community programs and cleanups. You know,
I absolutely agree with your philosophy. So I'd like to ask you,
Yeah.
young man, present the ideal of Santa Cruz Cares by saying, why don't you do that?
I mean, I don't think we've ever said anything like that before. What I think is just that Blue is here, he's in the trailer, he's in Downtown Streets team, he's not hurting anybody. Why are we passing laws that make his survival impossible, right? That's not an oversized vehicle. It's not taking up a bunch of parking spaces.
it is true that our services, because of Prop 13 and the legacy of that, our city services are tied to property ownership. And so I think what Santa Cruz Cares has always argued for is expanded services, to have support for people in place where somebody's gray water is leaking and they can't get to this one place on Soquel where they can dump because their vehicle doesn't run or because of the cost. Okay, they need help. They need help. Send out a honeypot truck. Help them fix their vehicle. We don't have enough affordable housing, and certainly not enough supportive housing for people. We know that they're not going to get into a house soon where they have a flushing toilet. So let's meet them where we are, where they are, and figure out, instead of just like pointing our fingers at them and saying that they're shitty people because they're not taking care of themselves. Let's like think about the holistic. I think there's a lot of different people who live outside, and there are stories.
It's never been like this, young lady. It's never been.
You know what?
It's the progressiveness.
This is a national problem that goes way beyond Santa Cruz, and the argument that people should just live somewhere affordable, I think, is actually becoming less
Well,
possible.
the government had so much money. Why don't they put up these people? Why don't they take care of them?
That is exactly it. Absolutely.
Are they
Yeah. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
I want to know why you guys, Santa Cruz Cares, continues to focus on the city. The county has the money, the county has the spaces, working with the county to provide safe spaces for people. If you put the pressure on the county that you put on the city, you might get much harder. I've said that night.
I know.
You.
I know, and
And
that's
yet
your.
you're still here in
Well-
the most impacted place,
Yeah.
trying to talk these people and
Yeah.
allowing
Well,
what they cannot tolerate
We're
and
not gonna
will not tolerate.
For one thing, well, because you're not in charge of us and we have different opinions, but also because the county isn't putting forward
They
a,
are.
a camping standards and services ordinance or an oversized vehicle ordinance. So we
They
formed
already have them. They already have them.
so we specifically are, if the city is putting forward an ordinance, and you're saying that the city that is not sort of in the city's jurisdiction or
Money. There's
Well,
no money.
There's a
they
public works
actually did
department.
just
girl.
spend $1 million.
There's a public works department that can
This is
put up
health
porta
and
potties,
human
that can put up trash
services
receptacles.
Okay,
No.
we can
That's
right.
the city has a public works department.
Keely's just down at London now.
Berkeley has a health and human services department. Berkeley, the city, Oakland, the city has a health and human services department.
The city does.
It doesn't
the point
matter.
is the city does get some money, and they can get some money, and they can choose how they spend the money.
To spend your energy on the county.
Carol, I think we appreciate that you're working on the county. You
Yeah.
work on the city. You work on the county.
And we work on the city and the county.
Yeah.
You're hurting the cause while you work on the city.
I think the cause has to be broader than it currently is.
Yeah.
No, I support the downtown street teams financially and everything else. I mean, one time I was down there having coffee. There's 5 o'clock by, holding shirts. I bought them all coffee and bagels. One of the reasons I do that is because here's people picking up garbage off our street, and they're trying to improve their lives, and they're willing to pick up garbage in our streets to do that. I thank them. I shake their hands. I go to their Zoom calls. And what really hit me one time that really shocked me is there two homeless people at the Zoom call talking about their experiences. You're not going to like this, but you know what they say? They say sometimes they're too accommodating for us. Sometimes, as one guy said, you got to hit the bottom before you say, you know what, hell, I need to do something about it. So sometimes in Santa Cruz, it's too accommodating at times. So that's when I see things like this where go ahead and live, and there's no services, and there's no bathrooms, blah, blah, blah. That's what I do. No, they have to find a place that's safe to live with all the services, with policing, with accountability and stuff like that. This is not the way to do it. You're doing a disservice. We all have compassion. We really do.
I spent a lot of time talking to people down there. Okay, I spent the last couple days actually taking down names, getting interviews with people, asking what are people's situations. First of all, not everyone is the same. People are down here for a lot of different reasons. There's no one homeless person or homeless people that act all the same way, right? A lot of people can come out here and spend a day out here and the environment is completely fine. You know, they come out here, they check out the beach and they go. Some people absolutely need these safe parking places. Safe. You know what they want? Safe. They want a 24-hour space where they don't have to be hassled and move every single day. And you know what we don't have is one of those. Actually, we have it, and there's a 60. What's that?
That's where your money should have been spent.
Our money?
You guys filed suit on the ordinance.
A suit doesn't.
Spend that money to buy.
We didn't spend. There was an lawsuit. So here we already saw it happen. There was a family of an elderly grandmother, her daughter, Rose, Bobby, Gio. They got kicked out of their RV, and then they just ended up in a tent. And the mess that they had is because their vehicle had maintenance issues. Santa Cruz Cares gave them hundreds of dollars to try to fix the vehicle, and it just didn't work out. It didn't work out. And so what the city could have done is they could have towed them instead of destroying their vehicle shelter, leaving them with nothing, such that mutual aid groups had to give them a tent. What the city could have done is at least put them in Housing Matters caseworker line of sight, which they did not do. And the very least they could have done, maybe, is tow them to a safe parking space, right? But they didn't do that. And so I think that this is the frustration, is that we have what the city says is that they're trying their best. They're giving people what they need. They won't take it or tow too hard, right? But we don't see that happen. And we know that as soon as OVO goes into law, Blue, who's on Downtown Streets team, is going to have his trailer taken away. All of his stuff is going to get taken with it. He's going to be left with nothing. And then what are people, what is he to do at that point? He's going to come to our mutual aid groups to get tents. Nobody else is like offering that. The city's not offering.
There's not a place for him to go right now.
Because you've set up the OVO such that it needs to be a private space with like permanent landlord approval. So that's why this is so frustrating and painful, is because it's like, we're currently in a situation where people are getting laws criminalizing their survival all over the place. Anti-trans laws, anti-abortion laws. This is exactly the same situation.
How about the concerns the natural bridges that are impacted by no available free parking?
There was
and the faculty that now have to walk in an extra couple of blocks because all the parking spaces are taken. So you're another impacted by those spaces being taken up. Don't just the after residents.
I think that, everyone has equal, if I were to choose, do I care about parking for people who are just like coming to work and walking a little bit and then coming back? Or do I care about someone's existential survival? Like, what do I value when I see a space, right? Like, do you really want to go to someone who's parking over here, who's living in their vehicle, and tell them, get out, I need to park a little closer to work? Is that what you're telling them?
I don't want to get with, so I don't have to go ask them.
Well, then you're creating a policy that makes that the norm. See, I think that's just not the values I think that Santa Cruz Cares wants to vote for. That's why we have opposed this ordinance. That's why we want to search for solutions that really address what folks want, like yourselves, more than the OVO, because the OVO is taking people's shelter away, as Tyler said. It's making the environmental impacts worse. There are studies that show that if you give people sanitation services, that's what mitigates the impacts, not the criminalization. And we've told this to the city over and over and over. And it's not getting through. And I think that's why we're trying to at least sort of figure out what we can work with here. Like, what can we mitigate? Because criminalizing people for not having access to sanitation services, it doesn't work. It may feel good, but it doesn't work.
This has been going on 10 years. So I'm going to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Who's here from this group?
Myself,
And
Joy over here,
and
then Laura is like sort of our sleeping group.
okay.
Yeah.
Do any of you folks who are asking for these other folks that you want these folks over here to live, are any of you folks out there enforcing that, number one, that it's a safe and clean environment, okay? Safe meaning little children with bikes can go down the street, and safe for this park over here, which has about 200 spaces, 300 and something people. And we're supposed to think, well, if we in our park, which is within feet of what we're seeing, what's happening out there, which is totally unsafe. If we go out in our street and we put furniture out, or if we put toilets out, or if we go and threaten our neighbor, or if we're even doing a drug deal, we all get kicked out. We lose everything in there because there is some sort of supervision. Why aren't you, or get more people who are for what you want, find them and see how long and what it's going to take for these vehicles, if they need some place to be, which this is not, in just my own little opinion, a good one. And I realize, I hear you, that you don't have enough spaces. This out here is just not a good one. And why don't you come out here and enforce it? Just come on out and enforce it.
I think that's not our job.
What's your job? It's not your job either.
No, it's our government's job.
Oh,
And that we all contribute to and we participate in. That is the collective job of our community. It's not the job of any vigilante group. or any particular community group that assigns itself that task.
Well, and
It is something that we need to work on together through our democratic structures. And the issues that you're bringing up, none of us advocate for people living in squalor, criminality, or untreated illness, or untreated disability. None of us think that that is okay. We are all advocating for safer spaces, for more funding being allocated to our social safety net, for much more affordable housing, and for better options than this. Nobody thinks that this is the ultimate end goal where people should live. That's not what we're advocating for. But we are saying, let's be honest, the system is letting a lot of people down. Increasingly, elderly people with disabilities. That is the largest growing demographic of people who don't have housing. In the absence of housing for them, and we know it's going to take a long, long time for there to be enough housing for everybody. In the absence of that, we have to build the structures with the city, with the county, with the state, with federal grants to have stopgap measures to meet people where they are. And we need to acknowledge that even those take time, and those are one-time funding. The city doesn't budget for that to have permanent funding in the way that they have policing as permanent funding lines. So if the structure of our community is one-time block grants that will run out, where we set up a program that's going to last for 6 months or a year or maybe 2 years, and then it expires, and then people have to start all over again, we know that we will have people who don't have anywhere to go. And we have to look at those people as human beings who have needs, many of whom have disabilities, very limited incomes, jobs often. And we have to look at them as human beings and say, how can we help them where they are now? Maybe this isn't the right place. Where's the better place that we can get together and pressure the city and the county for right now? There's empty lots in this neighborhood that would be less bad than people being abandoned on the street. There are better options. We need the political will to pressure them to set it up, expand it dramatically as fast as they can. Although I have to say, I've spent a lot of time out here and I've never been harassed, and we're all here right now and feel very safe. So I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen.
It happens a lot.
No.
Yes, and that's not okay. It's not okay.
I don't care. And I think it's reasonable to ask what do we do about that problem? Because I don't think we want people to feel unsafe because of behaviors.
Counter unhoused.
If there are behaviors, but as you saw, there were 2 young women who left now who are living on this block. They're not harassing anybody. There's a vehicle right over there that I canvassed. He's not harassing anybody. Well, I'm saying that
what I'm telling you?
this is your block right here.
Okay? Stop cherry picking stuff.
Okay.
When there's somebody's going to harass you, if I go come over and grab you by the neck right now, right? You're going to be upset over it.
Sure.
Same difference.
I understand.
I don't need that. I don't want to talk like anybody.
Right.
You guys should do something about that.
Right.
Now.
Well, so I understand what you're saying, and I think it is reasonable if someone harasses you to ask, maybe you want to ask the police to ask them to relocate somewhere, because that's not, that's not. Well, so
I don't see him anymore.
well,
I'm in favor of my parents, my grandparents came over here as immigrants. No one gave them anything.
Oh,
Sure.
bullshit.
They worked their ways.
Okay, Laura, come on.
Okay, yeah. Want to hear that young lady? I'm glad. No one gave them anything. I believe in a, not a down, a leg up. What happened to that structure that we had in this country
Sure.
years and years and years ago?
I know. Well, you know,
handout, but a leg up, getting him,
yeah,
getting him a job,
yeah,
getting him into society instead of letting him languish on the streets,
right.
which I think is horrible. In a tent, a family. I mean, that's nuts.
No,
And so
it's like
it's happened to our country.
it's well,
Too much permissiveness and too much with the handout instead of a leg up. That's got to change right now.
it's under abuse. Thanks for coming. So I think I want to ask people just a question, just to sort of get the thinking rolling. Is that like we've had a lot of crazy climate change things happen over the past few years. We've had CZU wipe out an entire city up north and force a lot of people out of their homes. And when they lost their homes, their insurance gave them like nothing. So they were left with no money to go anywhere. Then you had people in Pajaro get flooded out. That left them with nothing. Where were they going to go? And we have these laws that are criminalizing an alternative for if you lose your house in a climate disaster, which is happening every other year now, apparently. What do you have to do if you only have $20,000 in the bank because that's what the insurance decided to value your old home or your trailer? Like, you know, if something in Deanza gets destroyed, you guys are not going to have any money. You're not going to have any money from the insurance on that.
And I'm not the one who's maybe there's something up, but the lady, Carol's her name,
Are you talking about Laura?
Yes, she met our HOA today and said there are several plots available if they want. And she said somebody said that here before I got here. And so she's sorry, you're not listening. So that's the feeling we're all getting. You know?
Are you talking about the safe parking lot? When you say lots available, are you talking about safe parking?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So I've heard it.
Yeah. Okay.
I've heard your side.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't hear any reason not to, rather than out here, where I've seen people like their barbecues.
Right, which is that's obviously we don't want that, right?
Yeah, but you're allowing it by allowing it to stay.
Well, I don't, because do we allow? Because what if they were just renters? Renters have sometimes stuff, you know, that there are rules that they're not allowed to. And so I guess the question that comes to my mind is eviction really a just solution for breaking a rule like don't barbecue in your area? Because we know that an eviction in Santa Cruz means that you won't be able to go find another housing unit.
But they're not in a house, as you say.
Right, which is even more desperate, right?
Find another place to park. So your argument there doesn't make sense anymore.
Well, it does because the OBO criminalizes overnight parking throughout the entire city. Now, granted, except for the safe parking, granted, and the safe parking because it's nighttime only. That works. That does work for some people. That's fair. But you see that tier 3, the sort of lower barrier 24/7 program has a 50-person wait list. We already know that most people need that 24-hour safe parking spot, and they're not getting it. And so what that means is once we flip on this enforcement of OBO, people are going to get ticket, tow, and then they're going to lose their vehicle because they don't have the ability to access tier 2.
So you guys enforce just
Right.
why not work on him?
We absolutely would love that, and I think that county safe parking would be wonderful. I think it would be wonderful. I also think that the county, especially like when people are parking at the armory, like it works when it's 24/7 a little bit because they have a shuttle that lets you kind of go back and forth. A lot of people get to places they need to go to like access their health care. But when you're in a remote area of the Santa Cruz mountains, and I guess for me personally, and you can feel however you want to feel about this, I just don't feel as good about the segregation. Like, I like that there is a lower income community in Santa Cruz that's allowed. I don't want to criminalize RV parks, trailer parks, low income housing. I think that this is on the spectrum of that, unfortunately, to try to like think about safe parking as something that should not be in the city. And
that's not
And
It's gotta be in the city.
well, and I would like it to be as long as it's in the city. I have met with Justin Cummings. Justin Cummings, as you know, is not always forthcoming about what he's thinking.
So he's the guy.
Right. Well, Justin Cummings is one member of the County Board of Supervisors. Right, and I think that two is good. You need a majority to vote for something. Yes.
Can you help? Can you help with that? Help work on the count on the super.
Well, so if you've been,
City doesn't get the money.
so why hasn't the county done like you're telling me that it's not here yet? But I think it's unacceptable that it takes forever, but now we're going to give people these tickets and tows that are going to take their shelter away. Can we enforce it after the county has the safe parking available?